to Out of the Box Radio with me, your host, Christine Blasdale. Out of the Box Radio is a weekly podcast of audible ear candy dedicated to bringing a fresh perspective on this thing that we call life. And each and every week, we're going to be diving into the topics that matter most with lively conversations on issues such as health, wellness, and transformational healing, all with the goal of creating a better world and becoming a happier human being. I will be your tour guide for this epic adventure, and each and every week we're going to be embarking on a journey with the ultimate goal being transformation to our highest potential. And now, let's get out of the box. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Out of the Box Radio. I am your host, Christine Blasdale, and this program today marks a very special date in Out of the Box Radio's history, as well as the life of my dear friend who I have on today. This program is on April 21st, and it marks the 1-year anniversary of the passing of Mr. Prince Rogers Nelson, also known as Prince. And I have with me Miss Abigail Noel, who you know from, if you've been listening to Out of the Box Radio at all, for the past year. She has, not only is she a very dear, close, personal friend of mine, but she has also been someone who has helped guide me through so many incredible journeys along the line of this life, and most in particular with the phenomenon known as twin hearts or twin flames. And the passing of Prince marks a very significant moment, I think, in your life, Abigail, but also in the lives of so many of the listeners who are tuning in to this program. So I want to welcome back to Out of the Box Radio, Abigail Noel, and welcome back, Abby.
Thank you, Christine. I am honored to be here as always. Thank you for having me, and especially for having me on this date. As you said, it marks the 1-year anniversary of the passing of Prince Rogers Nelson. And you were with me, actually, on the phone when he when his spirit came to me on April 23rd last year, and channeled for the first time the events of his murder, as actually what was revealed.
Now, you say murder, and as we have been told repeatedly by the corporate news Borg media outlets that are around, that, for a long time they didn't know what happened, or they claimed that they didn't know what happened. And then the news sort of broke out that, and it's still foggy to me to this day, because they were trying to insinuate that it was like an overdose. They're insinuating that it was a mixture, or a bad combination of painkillers. And it's gotten so mishmashy, and so many different theories thrown in just in the corporate media from the official story. I think a lot of our listeners don't even know what happened, and it's almost like one of those things that's gone down the memory hole. It's like, oh yes, Prince passed away, and he had something to do with drugs. And so, of course, what sticks in the mind is like classic of all of these wonderful people that we've had in the past, wonderful musicians and singers and songwriters who have passed under some strange circumstances, but it's always been labeled a suicide. So
or overdose.
Yeah, accidentally. They were partying, and they, that kind of thing. But let's talk about because the 21st is when he had passed, and it was just shortly after that when he came to you, and you came to me saying, we need to get this on the air, and we did. I remember we did our very first show. We did a full hour. And there was so much information coming down to you, and I was feeling it. I was getting major goosebumps or chills. And then I went back. We had done the full hour. I remember this. And I went back to listen to the show. And it was, for the first time in my entire career of doing radio broadcast journalism, the file was so weird and corrupted that it was like our hour was down to a minute. And it didn't make any sense. it was all chopped up and smushed together. So we had to record it again.
Again, yeah.
And I know that was exhausting on you, but I'm thinking maybe it was also something like we needed to kind of get one thing laid down and then new stuff came in. But talk about the process, if you don't mind. If you can go back to that year, let's talk about what you felt, because you weren't a real close fan of Prince, right?
I didn't even know that he had died. In fact, I hadn't watched the news or television. I still have not watched the news or television or read magazines on this. The information that I get, once in a while someone will send me, a link to an article, something that validates the channeled information or evidence that has been brought through my channel, through me, from Prince Rogers Nelson and other Ascended Masters, actually through the one that I call Abba, Father God. And he was present, his energy was present during this channel with Prince Rogers Nelson. But again, going back to that, I have many witnesses that I didn't even know that he had crossed that day. So I first had to validate that he was crossed, because this was less than 48 hours after that had hit. And in fact, I had a client who had sent me a text saying Prince had died, and I thought she named her kitten Prince. So that was the first thing. The second thing is I didn't know anything about the man. I had not followed him any more than just in general media, Purple Rain, Little Red Corvette. In fact, I think like a lot of people felt, I think that the media did a really good job on us, actually, because I honestly, my ego, had made assumptions. I thought he was kind of nuts. I think we all heard a little bit about the time when he no longer was named Prince, and he's a guy named
symbol.
The Sign. I'm just a symbol. And he was writing slave on his face. All of those things, I think that many of us, the major populace, just thought he was an arrogant rock star, spoiled rotten, that was acting like an ass. And I think a lot of people thought he was being very arrogant and conceited at that time and didn't understand the real fight, the war. It's a gang war that was going on for his music rights. We're talking about billions of dollars, and there have been many, many, many musical artists and entertainers that have been murdered for money and for these rights. With that said, I wasn't really privy to any of that, nor was my mind in that place. I've worked as a conscious channel and a medium really all of my life, but professionally for the last 10 years. And I'm very aware when a spirit is with me. I'm very aware when they want to get my attention. And also during this time, I knew that whatever was transpiring, this channel with Prince, was intensely important. Number one, because Father God's energy, who I call Abba, was present at the time. Number two, because there are times when a channel is very important in that process, the DMT levels in my system are elevated. And so when I'm in that state, it's basically like being in a conscious, you're in a conscious hypnotic state. What it means is that the channel is even more clear than it is on any given daily, on any given day. And the other thing about it is that I have no filter. So when your DMT levels are elevated, it's very good at getting the ego out of the way, what you think.
Nice, right.
And so, again, I don't know where we go, except what I would want to say is that the first thing to acknowledge just on an earthly level is that this case is still being investigated as a homicide, and anyone can check that. That's the way it's being stated, and I've talked to Carver County Sheriff's Department, and they've said it is still open and that they do not, that it is still being investigated as a possible homicide. It's undetermined his cause of death, yet the media is just plastering us with this theory that he overdosed, that he was somehow hooked on drugs. And that is not what my channel says. That's not what Prince told me from the other side, and that is not what my channel says.
And they're being very careful because they know that a lot of people knew and were not a lot of people were close to him. I think he had probably a small circle based on the fact that he couldn't trust many people, but they knew that he was not a drug addict. They knew that he was not someone who was depressed or anything like that. But what they did is they tied in, he was in a great deal of pain from some physical ailments. So due to the pain that he was experiencing, Abby, the average U.S. citizen, That's why he was in so much pain. He was taking these painkillers and he became addicted to them. So it's not that he was a druggie per se, like a guy on the street corner, but this person who became addicted to these painkillers because he was in so much pain. That's how they're painting it.
Even
we
the
know
autopsy does not support that theory. Even the autopsy does not support that theory. There were so many opiates in Prince's system that no doctor would have prescribed that many, and no one could have taken and ingested that amount of drugs. It doesn't even make sense. It was an overkill situation. There was enough drugs in him to kill an elephant, and the man weighed about 100 pounds. So that's the first thing. The other thing is there's a lot of theories. They all talk about it being pills. There was no evidence in the autopsy of all of these pills. You know how many pills you would have to ingest to kill yourself on fentanyl, on medications that are prescribed to relieve pain. And not only that, but how many millions of people are taking these same drugs for pain across the country and they're not dying like flies? I don't care what anybody says. You've got to look at the numbers. Right. The numbers don't support it, and neither does the autopsy report.
And let's go back to what you got. Now, before there were any other reports or before you knew of any of his inner circle, the people that worked with him, the names and things like that, let's talk about the initial emotion that you felt when Prince came to you, and then what he showed you or spoke to you about. And I know it's been a year, but let's.
I remember
if you can,
it like yesterday.
Okay, let's talk about that.
And anytime you're in that elevated consciousness, the reading is like a movie. It's a holographic image that can be pulled back. The emotion, the movie, everything that you felt at that time, just like a memory, but much sharper. With that said, what was clear to me, and when I first realized Prince was with me, I was grocery shopping and I got in the car and I felt a presence with me. And that's the first time that I realized this was Prince Rogers Nelson. And then I validated with somebody that, yes, he was deceased. That's when I got you and Camille, a dear friend of mine, and who also works intuitively, psychically in California. I got both of you on the phone to witness the original channeled evidence. What happened that day is the emotion that came through was overwhelming betrayal. Overwhelming betrayal. What Prince continued saying and the words that were written, I could hear them and I saw it being written over and over again, was poisoned. I kept hearing the words, I was dosed. I was poisoned. I was shown, and the reason dosed and poisoned came through is because it was very clearly shown to me that Prince had been poisoned over an 18-month. They were very clear, an 18-month period by both of his cooks, his personal chefs, Ray and Jewel Roberts. Next, I was told that there was a difference between the long-term poisoning that was going on, which is why Prince was having the arthritic symptoms, the problems with his bones. Weakened his immune system. He was. They said he was having headaches and digestive issues. That was from the arsenic poisoning that was being given to him to make him look sickly. If people will remember, one of the first things the media did was try to present him as someone who had AIDS.
Yep.
So that was the first thing. Prince is sick. Prince has AIDS. And that's what they do. They first really, really seek to discredit this entertainer in the populace's eyes so that their fans start to see them through a different light. The next thing they did, when the AIDS thing didn't go over so well with Prince, and I think that's just because he was so open about who he was. No one was going to judge him for that. They started working on this theory that he was addicted to drugs because of the knee surgery that he had had. With that said, to me, the psychic evidence that came through that day, and this is what is overwhelming to me, and it's the frustration that I'm living with today, is that what I was shown has it's overwhelming, and it's been validated by Ray Roberts himself through an Associated Press report that literally came out 3 to 5 days after my original broadcast, when I made the original channeled interview with Prince public. So 3 to 5 days, I don't remember the timing, the Associated Press came out with an interview. They interviewed Ray Roberts personally, and what was validated was this. On the 23rd, which again was less than 48 hours after Prince was found deceased in his Paisley Park home, Prince's spirit was with me, and the first thing that he told me is that he was poisoned, that he did not eat his dinner that night because he suspected his chefs of poisoning him, that he had seen a doctor at 3 p.m. that afternoon, that the doctor he had gone to be tested for Lyme's disease. It was very clear to me, very clear, and that the doctor had given him a negative on the Lyme's disease, but said that he had so much heavy metal poisoning in his blood that it looked like he was being poisoned. Prince was then paranoid to eat his food. He didn't trust his chefs. So the things that were told to me that night is that he didn't eat his dinner that night, that he asked Ray Roberts, who was at his house when he arrived home about 6 p.m., to make him a tonic of fresh juice. And I was told specifically, and Christine, you were on the phone with me along with Camille when this information came through. And Prince told me that he did not eat his dinner, but he did ask Ray Roberts to make him a tonic of purified water, lemon juice sweetened with fresh pineapple juice, and that was the only thing he ingested before bed. All of that was validated through the autopsy report and the Associated Press report with Ray Roberts himself. Ray Roberts' own mouth stated that when he arrived at Paisley Park the next morning, which is funny, why did Ray Roberts even show up at Paisley Park the next morning? He had just seen Prince the night before. In his accounts in this report, he says that he messaged or tried to call Prince that morning. When he didn't receive an answer, he got concerned and went directly to the house. He also says in this report that when he found out Prince was dead, the first thing he did was check the refrigerator to see if he ate his dinner. He literally...
That to me is such a smoking gun. I mean, I am not Columbo. I am not Sherlock Holmes. Okay, I'm not even Jim Rockford from the Rockford Files or a Charlie's Angel, but I do know that if someone who was responsible for the food that was ingested by this person, who would be definitely on my list of questionables, the very first thing that they do is they run in just to see if he ate the food, not like, oh my God, this person who I have known for all of these years and who've set me up, me and my wife up in our restaurant, who have given us large amounts of money, who I have gotten to know on a very close level for so many years.
Even their children.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you find out that they're dead.
And you check to see if they ate the dinner you made them the night before.
What the fuck?
And what happened to the dinner?
Excuse my language. Well, no, I can say that. It's a podcast. What the fuck? That's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And he said it with his own words. You can get the Associated Press report. Not only that, but the Associated Press received the original video that I made with all of this information, this channeled information, channeled evidence from Prince. So they immediately went, interviewed Ray Roberts. He responded to the evidence that I brought through psychically. The other thing that was just overwhelming to me, overwhelming evidence that to me proves murder, because how would I have known that Prince asked Ray Roberts, his personal chef, and he told me, Prince himself told me that the reason he felt safe to drink that juice was because he watched Ray Roberts make it in his own kitchen. He showed me this, and Ray Roberts validated that in the interview with the Associated Press. He validated that he made him juice made of lemons and pineapple for his stomach and his digestion. Ray Roberts validated that. How on earth would I have known that in Memphis, Tennessee? I didn't even know that Prince lived in Minneapolis. I didn't even know that Prince had personal chefs who came and went from his house. In fact, I remember that first night. Remember when I even said to you guys, I said, can you check? Does Prince have a chef? He kept showing me the woman's face. And then we later found out that was Ray and Jewel Roberts. He also told me about the man who was there when he arrived home. That has also been validated. Ray Roberts himself said that he was there when Prince got home. The 3:00 doctor's appointment has also been validated by the press that Prince was at his doctor that day. Now, there is no way I could have known that information. That alone gives math and science supports Prince's murder. That coupled with the fact that the autopsy report does not support overdose or suicide. It doesn't support it at all. It supports an overkill.
Well, and they were looking to look at the like a possible overdose, and that the doctor, might have been the doctor's fault for overprescribing. Nobody is questioning the people that were feeding him.
This was an amount of drugs, and this is what really needs to be looked
at. It was 3 years they were feeding him.
Right, but the amount of opiates, and that was the other thing that came through in the original read on the 23rd. And this is one area that I'm very strong in, and that's the area of medical intuition. And cause of death was shown to me very clearly. I saw a golden triangle with 3 drugs, and I was told 2 opiates, 2 different kinds of opiates, and the other was a liquid. I was seeing it as a liquid cocaine or liquid caffeine. Now we know that fentanyl and cocaine has been used since the 1940s. It's an instant heart attack. It's instant death. And what they didn't look for, though, you wouldn't look for caffeine in someone's system. But if you were to mix this, what they have now is a super high-powered prescription form of caffeine that they're using for ADD and other things like that. Students are using it a lot now. But that was mixed, that's what I'm told, with the opiates that were found in his system. The other thing that came through is I was told that it wasn't just fentanyl, that there was another opiate found in his system. I think when I came through on the original, and it's on the out of the box, I think what I had said was fentanyl and morphine or something to that effect, which we found out later. One is fentanyl is a derivative of morphine, both opiates. There were 2 types of opiates found in Prince's body. And one, they can't even trace it being prescribed to him in any way, shape, or form. In fact, the news reports that came out today, because there was some information in the case that was concealed, and it was just released today, now says that they can't find any prescriptions in Prince's name. But they do have one prescription for OxyContin that was prescribed to Kirk. And he is now, this is my understanding from the news, Kirk, his right-hand man and assistant, is now saying that the doctor prescribed drugs for Prince in Kirk's name, that the OxyContin was actually for Prince. What I'm going to say, and this is my channel, it's Psychic Evidence, is that all of that is a setup. That the drugs that they're now saying that they found all over Paisley Park were the drugs that were planted by other people to make it look like Prince was an addict.
Right.
Period. And they cannot trace it to any particular doctor, nor to any particular person, nor can they legally find any of these drugs that can actually be traced to Prince Rogers Nelson.
You know what? I always like to, with Ray Roberts, who was the personal chef of Prince for about 3 years. Okay. On the night, I just went to look at his Twitter account just because out of curiosity, I wanted to see his face and see his eyes. On the actual date of the death of probably someone that he had worked very closely with for 3 years, you are the chef, you are the personal chef, you become friends. Supposedly, you would become very close friends with this person. And it would be a shock. I mean, it would shock the system to know that that the person you're going to see, that you've seen every single day, that you've made meals for, drinks for, is no longer there, and you would be. I would think you would be quite upset about it. But he did have time to make a tweet that night, and it said, "Tonight I didn't make dinner for my idol, boss, and biggest inspiration. He's gone, but I'm left with tons of music and memories." And I don't know why, but that last sentence, he's gone, but I'm left with tons of music and memories. I don't know why that sits so weird with me. I don't know why the fact that he was able to tweet. Okay? I don't, there's just something icky about that tweet, and I don't know exactly what it is. I can't put my finger on it, except for, I don't know. I just wanted to read that to you because I just thought that was very, it was just interesting. Let's talk, Abby, about the year since his passing. You have you're making a very special pilgrimage yourself.
Leaving tomorrow
right?
I'm on my way to Minneapolis.
So for his anniversary, being on the 21st of April, you will be in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And how long are you going to be there for?
We'll be there for 4 days. So we're committed. There's really many people that were awakened by Prince's Crossing. There were many people that were awakened psychically. I don't want to speak for everybody, but for those I know that, myself and those that are closest psychically to Prince, we understand that it's divine guidance. We understand that God, love, and truth speak. And there are many of us who know the truth. We know that Ray and Joel Roberts are responsible for his murder. Of course, there are people much higher up who were pulling the strings. And there are other people involved as well. Kirk, his assistant, Judith Hill, Taika, his sister, and then, as I said, those higher ups in what's called the Illuminati. The reason that we're going is we're going. It's not just to honor Prince, and it's not just to honor his inspiration. Again, I didn't really know him. I wasn't a fan. I've never been a person that's been really a fan of anybody. I just appreciate artists, and I appreciated his music. I appreciated his presence here on the planet. It's really not about that. It's about something much bigger. And Prince's Crossing awakened psychically a lot of people that are also hearing the truth, who know that Prince was murdered. And so for us, what this is it's a peaceful rally where we are going to lovingly demand justice for Prince. What we're stating, and math and science support what I'm about to say, is that enough psychic evidence has been presented through my channel alone to prove Prince Rogers Nelson was murdered. None of it supports, nothing that happened supports an accidental overdose. It doesn't support suicide. The autopsy doesn't support it. So we'll be making that pilgrimage every year on 4/20. It doesn't matter what day it hits. We don't change it for the weekend. We start on 4/20 before he crossed in a celebration of his life. We will be channeling Prince at 12:33. I was told that was the time that he crossed, and wildly enough, the autopsy can't dispute it. It certainly falls into line with the autopsy. So at 12:33, we will be channeling Prince, and that'll be something inspiring. On Saturday, and these are just the highlights. There's a lot that goes on. That's Thursday night. Friday, Prince has actually challenged us to jump into Lake Minnetonka. It's going to be really cold, but I promised I'd do it. So there'll be a few of us brave folks. I think there's about 40 to 50 of us in our group. I don't like to say our group versus this group. What is different about our group? Our group recognizes that everyone on the planet is psychic and can hear their own divine guidance and can hear God, whatever your definition of God is. We are not talking about religion. We are not aligned to any religion. God, love, and truth speaks to all of us. And we know the truth of what happened to Prince. When you know something is true, I don't know how it's a fire that you walk with every day. And it's a hard fire to walk with. It's a very difficult fire to walk with, especially when it feels like most of the world believes otherwise. Most of the world is believing what the media is painting, and it's bullshit. And so it's very hard to walk with that truth every day. But it's also an honor. There isn't anything else that I would do.
Well, you couldn't do anything other than that.
I could not.
It's the same thing with, for so many years when when I became awakened to the truth about 9/11, a little bit about the truth, because nobody really knows except for the people that perpetrated it. But so many people still to this day, they bought the mainstream media story or the official government story about Osama bin Laden, and they wanted to take our freedoms, so they did this extraordinary event, which it would be impossible for anybody to do. The law of physics was completely overturned on that day. There were so many quote unquote coincidences, and wow, isn't that amazing that happened that particular day with the war games, and we can go on and on and on. But it's that same thing. It's kind of like living in a different parallel reality where, you know what happened. It's the same thing with JFK. So many Americans really know what happened with JFK. They know. But they've been brainwashed. All the other outside sources are telling them, no, it was the lone gunman up on, with the book, the book depository, and yet that it's not possible. The way that they've said it happened, it's not possible. And so many things in our recent history, in history in general, that we've been told, and that it's not the truth. So it's really, I can understand, it's really, really difficult to walk along that path of your truth and say, no, this is something that needs to be looked into. This needs to be looked into. With 9/11, for me, it was those 3,000, the initial. I mean, now realize, since this whole thing happened, there are millions of people who have died because of the quote-unquote reaction or the planned action of 9/11 as far as this war of terrorism, on terrorism, whatever you want to call it. Millions of people have died. Not just 3,000 that initially died in the towers, in the planes. But what I know is that the truth comes from those souls who say, yes, I was taken at a time that I did not want to be taken. I was surprised. I was sitting in my computer terminal turning on the thing, and poof, I was gone. But it's their souls reaching out to me saying, it's not true. Don't let them launch multiple wars in my name. And I felt that on every single time I saw the buildings come down. I had goosebumps, and it was like they were screaming. I mean, not screaming like they were just yelling at me saying, please, that's not how we went. And so I can understand that, and especially you being so in touch with your intuition and so in touch with those that are trying to reach out to you. Of course, he would reach out to you to try and get the story out and to get it out on different outlets on Facebook and on Out of the Box Radio when we first did it. But I understand how sometimes it can feel really lonely to be walking down this and knowing what the truth is, and then yet having everybody believe a different truth.
Well, what was beautiful about it is, and number one, it was angry, and in fact, so much anger and frustration that lonely sounded great. Lonely sounded great, and what I did is I work with Spirit, I work with Abba, I work with my team, I work with Prince some days. I love it because Prince will always come to me and he says, I can't say sorry, but I will say thank you. And so he and I do a lot of thank you when I'm about to lose my mind with all of this. And yes, I know the truth, but I took that anger, I worked with Spirit on it. And that's when I started realizing, we can all get angry. There's so many of us on the planet that know exactly what you just said. We know what really happened at 9/11. That was a foundational traumatic event that was created by a one world order in our own government to start a divisive plan to get the population and especially this country more in control. It's part of the Depop plan. So that's great. We there's so many of us that know this. There's so many of us that know that our two-party system is bullshit. It's an illusion. It's a ruse. There's so many of us that know that John F. Kennedy and John F. Kennedy Jr. didn't just both happen to mysteriously die. One shot in a plane just falls from the sky. Imagine that when he was about to be senator, right, Hillary? Excuse me. I mean, come on, guys. We know this, but I think so many of us don't know what to do with that anger. We don't know what to do with that truth. And it's really tough because sometimes, you go to speak it even to and people you care about, friends or family members, and then they tell you you're crazy, and so you get a lot of that. So I thought, okay, what do I do with this anger? Because it wouldn't, I don't care if someone calls me I'm crazy. The hard part is when you're carrying the truth and you've been given this truth, and then, what can you do with that? And, that's part of the human experience. So that's what this is about. What am I going to do about it? I will be in Minneapolis at 4/20, and we will be at Carver County Sheriff's Department peacefully and with a whole lot of love. We plan on singing. We plan on speaking. But we're going to be at Carver County Sheriff's Department Saturday at 3:30 p.m. We're going to stay until Spirit tells us to go, or until the law tells us to go if they do. But again, it's going to be very peaceful. But we're going to start speaking what we know to be true. And I'm going to stand on the psychic evidence. I'm going to stand on the psychic evidence. Math and science supports that 88% of what I said about Prince's death has now been validated by reliable sources, news media, and the autopsy. So math and science would say that 88% of everything that I said about Prince is more likely accurate than not. And it's the only theory in math or science that could explain the information that I brought through that has been validated that I could not possibly have known, that is called psychic evidence, is zero probability. That's it. The only thing math and science can say is that they can't explain how I knew that. And if I knew, and you were right there, you witnessed it on April 23rd, he didn't eat his dinner, Christine. Oh my God, it was in the refrigerator. We found out that's true 5 days later. I was told that he asked Ray Roberts, who was at his house, and all of that's been validated by the media, to make him juice with lemons, water, and fresh pineapple. And Ray Roberts validated that with his own mouth in an Associated Press news report, for crying out loud. Math and science would then support that everything else I said is true. And I'm going to say it again today. Prince Rogers Nelson was murdered. They have tissue and hair samples. We need another autopsy report done with those tissue and hair samples. We need an outside private company. We need more than just one person looking in on this, and more than just Carver County Sheriff's Department handling it, because it's not getting handled.
Yeah, it's a little tiny police department being responsible for such a massive, a huge case as well. And let's talk about the reasons why, because that'll be what I'm getting is the zeitgeist of the listeners. You know, they might be saying, well, why, Abby? Why would they want to take out Prince? Let's just put the music catalog to the side for a second, which is worth millions and millions and millions of dollars. Okay, same thing with Michael Jackson, which happened with Michael Jackson. But so let's put the music aside, which by now is probably the property of who? Of is it Sony Pictures now, or
and my understanding is that Jay-Z owns quite a bit of it as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Hey there.
Jay-Z is pretty healthy these days.
He's healthy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but let's talk about some of the other reasons why. I know that prior to his passing, he had spoken out against or spoken out about chemtrails.
Yep.
Depopulation. He did mention that. But also something that came out I think it was on our original show a year ago. And I'll put up links to that original show for people on this, so they can see it. But yeah, that it was possibly political. We were in the beginnings of it. Well, we were in the midst of a very important election, and let's talk about that. I believe you had picked up that there was a manuscript, or there still is a manuscript.
Yeah, we
right?
actually have found out that that's true. So I love that you brought that up. Prince told me on the 23rd, less than 48 hours after he had crossed, that before he died that evening, he was in his bed on his computer, that he had talked to several friends that night. It's been validated that Will Smith was one of those friends, along with Jada. Neither one of them have anything to say about that conversation today. Imagine that. Prince also told me that what he was working on his computer was a manuscript, a book. And this book was going to uncover, not in the most direct ways, but it was certainly going to address the criminal activity in our U.S. politics, as well as the entertainment and more specifically the music industry. And what has now been validated is that book exists. There were 50 pages turned in to Esther Newberg at ICM Partners, and she has those 50 pages. She will also not comment on that book's existence, but it is there. The press also brought that out.
Wait a second. So she won't make a comment about it?
Nope. Esther Newberg will not comment about it.
And it's Esther Newberg at
ICM Partners.
ICM.
New York.
Okay.
Esther
Interesting.
Newberg. Give her a call.
So she has some, it would be very nice to have those 50 pages.
It would be wonderful.
Published for the people, right?
Right. Another thing that came through on the original, on the 23rd, Prince shared with me, and I didn't know anything about what he was doing professionally, concerts, touring, what he was doing. What he said to me was that he had been doing smaller concerts around the country, that he wanted to keep it to a couple thousand people so that he could speak politically and start speaking out against what our government is doing, the depopulation plan, the target that our country has on minorities and the classes, the chemtrails, Monsanto. And he spoke, and this is what really blew my mind, but he spoke very much about the corruption in politics and the move that Hillary Clinton was making against Bernie Sanders. What was brought to me, and I just got full chills, what was brought to me is that the election was being stolen, that Bernie Sanders was the rightful candidate, and that if the people, that 53% of the country had their hearts had already spoken, and that Bernie Sanders would have been the rightful president of the United States today. Full chills on that. And yes, all of that was brought through Prince Rogers Nelson.
And from what I remember too, from that day too, he was planning on speaking during the inauguration of, or performing possibly at the inauguration of Bernie Sanders. Had that happened, that was already in the works.
Yes. Yes, and he was going to be doing some political speaking more so as the election came out. In fact, he was talking about September was the date that he kept talking about.
Which would make a lot of sense to eliminate Prince, because then you're talking about, I mean, how can you lose when you have? Bernie already had so many people behind him.
He lose with Prince behind you.
Yeah, he was already winning really in the polls, and he should have won the primary. It was stolen from him, and it's been uncovered that the Democratic National Committee cheated at every place they could. They had Donna Brazile fishing the questions telling the questions to Hillary that what they were going to be asked on CNN. The Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the shenanigans that she was doing, all of the criminality of the DNC. And then of course Bernie, eventually he stepped down. I think that there was a threat not made to him directly, but maybe about someone that he cared about, possibly
family.
But then if you have Prince throwing his hat in the ring for you and saying, I stand behind Bernie Sanders, I'm going to perform, vote for him and I'll be performing at his inauguration, it's gone. It's the done deal.
Which is one, I love that we're bringing this up. That is one of the main reasons that these entertainers and stars are targeted. So if you are not on the gang's agenda, if you are not on the Illuminati's agenda, then you are now a marked man.
And your endorsement of a movement. Mm-hmm. They've learned this from the civil rights. They've learned this from the civil rights era. They've learned this from the Vietnam War era. Yeah.
Well, and what Spirit keeps saying in my head is that as an entertainer to this particular organization, this One World Order, these 26 goofballs that run the show around the planet, whatever that is, that you are allowed to be revered but not liked. So when a star is very popular, when they're genuinely liked, that is a threat to this group. So now this person is genuinely liked. See, they're not going to have another Ronald Reagan. They're not going to have somebody, let alone just endorse a candidate. Oh, my God, that puts him in office and takes their player right out. There goes Hillary, right? But to actually run for office, oh, good Lord, we can't have that. And if you look, we all know this. Every outsider president in history has been shot, has been murdered, except Ronald Reagan. And they did their very best, to get him out. But every outsider president has been, and it's no different for the entertainers. Those are outsiders who try and come in and have influence in this political arena, and it's a no-no, especially if their beliefs and their position is not in standing with this one world order.
There's studies that show that children who have been traumatically abused at a young age, for many years, that as they get older, their abilities, I know we all have psychic abilities, we all have wonderful intuitive abilities, but that those children, after years and years and years of abuse, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual abuse, their intuition is just off the charts. And what I think is what's happened is that the American people, because people around the globe, people around the world, they see it, they get it. They don't understand what we're smoking or drinking that makes us in this mental fog of Disneyland. But what it is that I think that also that after this repeated trauma, of JFK, Martin, Malcolm, so many of these people who actually challenged the system in some respect, were taken from us. I think after a while, most Americans either become numb and they go back to their credit card shopping and, drinking, consuming,
Christmas is coming.
right? Products and things like that. Or there's a huge faction, I think, that just like that traumatized child, their intuition is heightened. And so they know in a deep core level, they know what the truth is, except it's that mind, that game where they're telling you, no, the sky is actually, chartreuse. And you're like, no, it's not. I can see with my own eyes. It's not chartreuse. Yes, it is. It is. And everybody, we're gonna tell you every single hour on the hour that is chartreuse.
Hillary's a really good person. She's a grandmother. I had someone
She's a
say
woman.
that to me.
Yeah.
She's a grandma. She's got to be a good person. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Oh my God. You can't spend that many years in politics and be a, no judgment, but a good person. What I love that you brought up is that it's absolutely science supports what you just said. When any individual, any human being goes through a traumatic time, and this would go for dogs too, isn't that funny? They have a bit of a different consciousness. It's not as much of a primal brain. They are more easily imprinted. With that said, anytime you go through severe trauma of any kind in direct relation to how the trauma affects you, the DMT levels are elevated in your brain, and it's a protective response, and it allows that person a higher connection with God during that time. In some cases, when the trauma, this was shown to me in the Holly Bobo case, when the trauma is so severe, what happens is that person literally goes to another psychological state. The DMT levels are raised so high in their brain that they're very little of what's going on in this third dimensional realm do we know in our conscious experience. You're more in your subconscious mind and in a different world.
You just like skip out.
You do. You will skip out a lot of it. You may have bits and pieces that you'll remember.
That's happened. It's interesting. It's happened to me not as it was traumatic as far as I've had accidents, like automobile accidents, where as the car is spinning out of control on the opposite side of the freeway, and you're waiting for that impact of the opposite car to hit you. What happens is that what I've noticed. When I'm very much near death, my whatever you want to call it, my soul, whatever, jumps out of my body, kind of just like parks it over to the right.
You'll feel it.
Yeah, and looks at the scene and goes, ooh, I don't want to be there for that.
Become the observer.
Become the observer, and when you become the observer, it's much easier to take. I think is what it is.
More objective. It depersonalizes and it reduces the conscious trauma to the physical body and to the physical consciousness and emotions.
Well, because also then you realize that you're connected to all.
Yes.
When you do separate, when the soul separates from that physical body, when it just pulls away from it to look at the scene and to go, oh, okay, this is what's happening. Let me just wrap my head around this because I was just driving on the 405 and now I'm upside down, careening down. No, but yeah, okay. So there is the elevated the DMT.
Elevated DMT levels, and science knows that they are elevated in times of trauma.
Exactly. So
and when someone is channeling, we now know through science the DMT levels are elevated. So it's the same connection to God's source.
I have a question for you, since this is the 1-year anniversary of Prince, of his passing, of his murder. I'm not going to say his passing anymore because now I can tell he's going to get upset. Of someone taking him out from our world. I'm wondering, have you had any recent calls from him? Have you had any recent visits from him or anything? You can talk about, because this is the anniversary, or is it going to be all coming up?
I call. No, it's all good. I call him P, because I call Jesus J. He asked me to, and P is with me he's with me every day, and when I say that, we talk every day. People would say all the time, "How does he have time to do that?" When you're dead,
How does he have time? Again, human beings. We're applying our timeline, our linear timeline to souls.
Right.
I love people that crack me up.
So
how does he have time to do that?
How does he have time to do that? They'll say he can't be with you every day. He's got other people to talk to. God and each individual, each soul that's passed, is in each one of our hearts. And they, basically they've broken all, the linear time, consciousness, whatever that is. So they can be with every single person on the planet. God can be with each one of us. Prince can be with each one of us in our hearts. And so he's with me every day. There isn't a day. And what does that mean? There isn't a day that goes by that either he does not grab my consciousness, or I'll get maybe a few hours into the day and I'll go, P, where are you? What are you doing today? And it's for me, it's the way I want to say it. I said, how do I introduce you guys? And Jay just told me, just call us your dead family. My dead family is just as alive to me as my alive family and the people that are here on the planet. They are just as important to me. My mind and my heart wants to know what they're doing every day. And you know what I love about this? People don't know they can do this, but that's how I learn about heaven. I asked Prince what he was doing the other day. I said, well, you haven't been around to bug me all day, because we sort of have a brotherly, sisterly relationship, and he gives me shit all the time. And so when you don't have that, you kind of like, hey, where's he been? No one's like nicking at me today. And so one day I asked him, I said, P, you've been kind of quiet. Where you been, man? And he said, I'm in the Great Hall working with Mozart. That's what he said. He said he's writing new music in heaven. Oh. And so that's what he told me.
And that is a visual right there. Can you imagine Prince and Mozart working together?
It's so funny because apparently they're with Beethoven, because I just had a vision of three of them with their heads on the ground. You know the story about Beethoven? He's deaf, so that's how he learned how to play, by the vibration. Oh. So I just saw all three of them laying with their ear on the floor. One of them's hitting the keys.
You know that if Prince laid down some electric guitar to some of the Mozart stuff, that it would just be off the hook. That we want to bring to this planet. That's what we want to really bring to this planet. So you do still keep up communication with him. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good. And
more so now going into 420. In fact, people have been having dreams, visions. There's a sign. We walked in here today, and there's a penny, and Prince does pennies from heaven. He'll do that a lot. They're called Prince pennies. And so people will find him in the craziest places. You know what I mean? It's something very obvious where, you'll turn around and say, I know that wasn't just there. And so, things like that. One day I had taking my garbage out, I always get a penny when I go and take the trash out. And so what you do is then you play a game. So I challenge them because, see, I know heaven can do anything. So they can drop a penny anytime, any place. Point being, I had just walked all along my pathway, and I had looked because I was in a little college place. And so the students are always throwing down trash and stuff. And so when I take out the garbage, I pick everything up. When I came back to my apartment, there's a penny sitting perfectly, right on my mat, where I could never have missed it. Nobody came, nobody went. I couldn't lie. That's the kind of crazy stuff. Getting gas the other day, I'll get out. I didn't, no penny anywhere. When I go sit back in the seat, there'll be a penny sitting in my car seat. So things like that. So there's been a lot of signs that come up for Prince, and it gets kind of turned up when all of us come together and gather. And again, that's just because they're working through the energy. All of our consciousnesses are coming together. We're all getting prepared to go. We're getting prepared for the peace rally.
So since this is airing on Friday the 21st, let our listeners know where you'll be if they want to reach out to you or try and find you. Of course, you're on Facebook. You can find information about Abby at Abigail Noel on Facebook, Abigail, and her last name is Noel, Noel, on Facebook. And then you have, of course, a website as well.
Yep, website, so abigailnoel.com. You guys can you can go there and schedule a session as well. Anybody who would like to, you just go to the schedule a session page, and my regular fees are there. There's a PayPal button, but guys, I work as a ministry. If you can't afford the regular fees, just make a donation. And book some time. With that said, we will be in Minneapolis for the 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd. We will be leaving, breaking up about Sunday afternoon. There's a lot of events. couldn't go over the whole schedule right now. The main one that I'd want to say is please come out and meet us at 3:30 at Carver County Sheriff's Department. Again, it's going to be a peaceful rally for justice. We are lovingly demanding justice for Prince. We're going to be playing music, singing, speaking, and gathering.
If people from wherever they live in the country, if they want to see your live video streams, that's where I would say they should go to Facebook, right?
Yeah, go to Facebook.
Go to Facebook and look up Abigail Noel on Facebook, and you can see the live video. There's going to be lots and lots of live videos. If you go there and they had just they just finished one, then you can look at the video. It's up there, so you can see it. It won't be in real live time, but you'll be able to see the whole thing that's happened. So, want to encourage people to do that, and I really do want to encourage people to give a shout out to Abby if you're interested in getting a session with her, a one-on-one session. They're fabulous. She's just been, just like I said, she's so important to my life, and she's brought so many wonderful insights. And really, if you've helped me along some really bumpy, crazy roads this last year and a half, I would say. I hope that you can also help other people that are going through the stuff that
Thank you. I'm
that
honored.
I had gone through as well. So good luck on this entire weekend
Prince
and
Pilgrimage.
the Prince Pilgrimage that's taking place in Minnesota. And what city? Minneapolis.
Minneapolis.
Again, this is airing on 4/21, so the whole weekend Abby is going to be there. Check her out at Abigail Noel on Facebook or abigailnoel.com on the website. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me here today, and I appreciate it. And I just wanted to say, almost all of the events that we do at 420 will be live, so it's a lot of fun to watch.
Awesome. All right, we're out of time for today. I want to thank you so much, listeners, for tuning in to Out of the Box Radio. If you missed any of this, you can, of course, you can catch it on the podcast, the replays that are available on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. I will post probably on the YouTube channel, I will post the original Prince show that Abby did, Out of the Box Radio show that Abby did just like 1 or 2 days after Prince's passing last year. So you can have a listen to that as well. And as always, I want to remind you to think outside of the box. Until next time, bye for now. Prince, we love you. We love you, love you, love you.